Hey, this is Gary Kay. We are at InfoComm 2019. I'm here with Justin Kennington, president of SDVoE Alliance. Justin, how are you?
Good afternoon, Gary. I am ready to get off of my feet.
Same here, and we're at towards the end of the last day, but there's still a lot of people lingering around the hall. You just finished an educational session, which we had to wait for to start this interview. Offline, we were talking, and you said you already had twice the number of leads that you had last year, something in that range?
Yeah, we've about doubled that. We've given so far 39 education sessions at our SDVoE 2020 stage. We've got 2 more left for the afternoon, and we've had that audience packed full at every one of these talks. Made me very happy.
Well, I did one yesterday, and I was very impressed with the crowd, and people were standing around in the aisle, and then the questions afterwards. So tell me, there's these different groups that are trying to come up with standards for AV over IP, like you have AIMS that's trying to get the SMPTE standard, and then you have other sort of groups that are trying to make their own standard. But in reality, we've talked about this before, SDVoE has so much adoption that in a way it is kind of right now has a momentum of a standard-like momentum. Is there any thought of SDVoE Alliance actually sort of filing something or going to someone like SMPTE or someone like that and saying, hey, why not use our standard as the standard?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're certainly keeping the door open and may go that way. But as you say, our focus has been on adoption, right? Rather than, frankly, sit back with a bunch of engineers in committee and write some theories about how a standard could work and what would be the perfect way to do it, and let's get everybody's opinion and fight over it for years. You know, instead of fighting it out in committee, we've developed a product ecosystem that works, and we're going to use that momentum to just drive a standard into the market. I don't mind saying that this is exactly the same model that Audinate and Dante have used with extreme success in the networked audio side of things.
You're right. Actually, I was going to use that as an analogy. I mean, although Dante is not a standard per se, 275 or 300 manufacturers almost now have adopted it and are using it in building products. You have 45 video companies and network companies and software companies using SDVoE. So that must make you happy, and it almost feels like you're becoming kind of an AV standard with quotes around it.
That's it. I'll be happier at 50 and 75 and 100, but we keep growing this thing very fast. There's now 200 products already built and shipping on this platform, and all 200 of those SDVoE products interoperate and work together.
Yeah, and I think that's been your mantra the whole time, is interoperability rather than standardization. Talk about that for a moment, because right now the way the standard, the way SDVoE sits is that you can use anyone's, as I said in my presentation, gazentas to anyone's gazetas. Any input encoder can be used with any output decoder, and that provides you an advantage because you do have a plethora of companies to choose from with varying features.
That's it. It gives the designer the flexibility of the whole SDVoE ecosystem in his toolbox, rather than being restricted to a single vendor's products.
Yeah, and some of the interesting form factors I've seen are like in a Decora wall plate style, the ruggedized versions, things like that I think are differentiating the companies, because a lot of people, and there are companies that are rebranding the same box, but for the most part, each company has tried to put their own spin on and flavor to what they're doing. So you do have some differentiation in feature set and even performance and operational connectivity standards.
Well, there's that differentiation in the hardware that you mentioned, but the other key area of differentiation is the software, right? Part of the promise of SDVoE is we've used this API to decouple the hardware and software layers. So now there are ways to differentiate the hardware, interesting form factors, interesting I/O combinations, etc. But then the real value is in what applications are built for different vertical market segments on top of this platform.
I know you're not going to tell me what your ultimate plan is, but I think it's good for the viewers to understand sort of like the philosophy going forward, because you've already done what you planned. I'm going to bet that when you took this role, that what's happening is exactly what you wanted to happen, or close to what you wanted to happen. So what is phase 2 or whatever phase you're on? What's the next phase? Like, where do you see success? I mean, I know numbers, and you just said, get 75 or 100. I don't mean specifically that, but where do you go as far as, like, for example, partner relationships with companies that are influencers in the industry, like display companies, for example, or even source companies. Where, again, I'm sure you're not going to share anything you don't want me to know, but can you provide me some sort of roadmap?
Well, I think look to the mission statement of the SDVoE Alliance, right? Our purpose is to displace point-to-point video extension, right? And that's HD-based-T. Our purpose is to replace that so that everything this industry does all the time is AV over IP. And so you mentioned displays and sources. We're already starting to see that kind of integration. So Christy, one of our founding members, has included native SDVoE connectivity in all of their big 3DLP projectors and in the Microtiles LED product. So that's just the beginning of that trend, and we're going to see more and more. One of our newest members, a company called Yuan, has produced a PCI capture card with SDVoE connectivity. So now I can ingest content from the SDVoE system right into a PC for really advanced real-time processing and things. So we're starting to see a move away from just encoders and decoders and pushing that technology in further to the edges of the system.
But we also still need to see more display companies, right? I mean, don't you need NEC and LG and Samsung and some of them to adopt SDVoE? Because I think that's what it seems to me, looking at the history of HD-based-T, that was the big reveal. I mean, when I saw Panasonic added it and then Sony added it, and then that was huge because it kind of put them over the hill, and I think it propelled them where every signal routing and distribution company started outputting HD-based-T. Do you think next year, if we're here next year at this time, Vegas, next year at this time, do you think it's possible that we will actually see a handful of display manufacturers with SDVoE?
I'll certainly say that's one of the things we're working on, right? Christie is just the start. I think we'll see more of it from them, and certainly we'd welcome other display manufacturers along. So
you're actively trying to get them to do that?
You didn't hear it from me.
All right, for more information, go to SDVoEalliance.org. One thing I do want to point out, even if you're not an SDVoE user or you're not an AV over IP user yet, you actually have a really good educational section of your website, and you even have it certified and CTS approved, some parts of it. So you have some really good short tutorials, TED-like kind of ish tutorials, short. So I would encourage people, if you want to get educated on AV over IP, most of that stuff is not specific to SDVoE. Most of it is sort of industry information on how things work on the network and what the possibilities are and what the applications are. I would encourage you to go there, SDVoE.org, because you do have that educational section.
We view that education as a real service that we can provide to the industry, right? There's a knowledge gap and there's a skills gap between where we've been as AV pros and where the IT department is, right? And so we're not going to try and turn AV guys into IT guys or vice versa, but we want to bridge that gap. We want to make the AV guy comfortable sitting down with the IT department and having a conversation about what does this mean for my network? How do I deploy AV over IP so that we can better work together, right? A lot of it is not a technology problem, it's a people problem. It's communication. And we see our education platform as a way to help bridge that gap and make these people better able to communicate and work together.
And let's be honest, we're dealing with a totally new way of doing signal routing and distribution and systems design, so that level of education is required. If you want to learn more, go to SDVoE.org. Of course, all of our InfoComm 2019 coverage is at ravepubs.com. Click on the InfoComm link. Justin, thanks for joining me, and congratulations on a great show, and thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.